Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here or you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button now so you won't miss any of my latest videos. Alright, buckle up, because I'm about to tell you a story that'll make you think twice the next time you see a car stopped on the side of the road. Have you ever driven past a car that looked abandoned, hazards blinking in the gloom, and felt that little prickle of unease? That question, that tiny hesitation about whether to stop or keep going, that's exactly where this story begins, buried in the snow-dusted streets of Denver. It was a Saturday night in late January, the kind of night where the snow wasn't just falling, it was performing, each flake a tiny dancer in a grand, swirling ballet. Mike and I were on our way to a dinner party, a cozy gathering at our friend Sarah's place. Now, Sarah, bless her heart, could throw a party. Her dinners were legendary. Always warm, inviting, filled with laughter that bounced off the walls and food that tasted like it was cooked with love and a sprinkle of magic. We were both looking forward to escaping the dreary weekend indoors, to thawing out with good company and even better food. But, as life often does, the path to simple pleasures took a little detour, or maybe a foreshadowing detour, depending on how you look at it. We realized about halfway there that we were showing up empty-handed, a social faux pas neither of us wanted to commit, especially not at Sarah's. Liquor store? Mike suggested, already reaching for his phone to check the closest one. Quick stop, in and out. Ugh, seriously? I groaned, my eyes glued to the road, which was rapidly disappearing under a thick blanket of white. In this weather? It's like a blizzard out there. Mike, ever the optimist, chuckled. Come on, it'll be a festive touch. Besides, what's a dinner party without some decent craft beer? And maybe a bottle of whiskey for the host, to really show our appreciation. He had a point, the logic was sound, but the sheer inconvenience of it in this weather was grating on my nerves. Still, Mike could be persuasive, and deep down, I knew he was right. We grumbled a little, but navigated our way to the nearest liquor store, a small, brightly lit beacon against the growing darkness and swirling snow. We dashed inside, the warmth of the store a welcome hug against the biting wind. The place was surprisingly busy for such a foul night, people stocking up, preparing to hunker down, or maybe, like us, braving the storm for some social cheer. We quickly navigated the aisles, grabbing a six-pack of a local IPA, something hoppy and wintry, and a bottle of smooth, amber whiskey. Mission accomplished. We were about to head back to the car when Mike suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, eyes glued to the counter. Zins, he muttered, like a man possessed. Gotta grab some Zins. Seriously, Mike? I said, my voice laced with a hint of exasperation. We're in the middle of a snowstorm, heading to a dinner party, and you need your nicotine fix right now? He shot me that look, the one that said, don't even start. But I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Mike's Zin obsession was his latest quirk, a habit he'd picked up recently and clung to with the tenacity of a drowning man grabbing a life raft. It was, frankly, annoying, especially since I was the designated driver in my less-than-stellar car, navigating increasingly treacherous roads, and now, waiting in the freezing car while he indulged his cravings. He zipped back into the store, leaving me to grumble and sigh inside the warm liquor store, watching the snow intensify outside the window. A few more minutes ticked by, feeling like tin in the biting wind, before he finally emerged, a small, triumphant grin on his face, a pack of Zins tucked securely in his pocket. All right, let's get this show on the road, he announced, hopping back into the passenger seat. I pulled out of the parking lot, the tires slipping slightly on the fresh layer of snow. The wipers were working overtime, struggling to keep up with the relentless snowfall. The world outside was rapidly turning into a blurry, white canvas. The drive to Sarah's was usually a breeze, a straightforward 20 to 30-minute cruise through familiar suburban streets. Tonight, though, it felt like an expedition to the South Pole. The snow was coming down harder now, piling up on the roads, turning the familiar asphalt into a slick, white skating rink. My little car, bless its aging engine, was doing its best, but every turn, every slight incline felt like a gamble with gravity. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, my knuckles white. My focus narrowed to the taillights of the car ahead and the vague suggestion of road beneath the snow. "Smooth driving, Captain," Mike quipped, noticing my tense posture. "Hilarious," I muttered back, my eyes fixed on the road, just praying we make it in one piece. The tension in the car was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every slip, every skid, sent a jolt of anxiety through me. The festive mood of the evening had evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of unease, fueled by the storm and the increasingly challenging drive. We'd been driving for what felt like an eternity, the once familiar streets now alien landscapes of snow-covered houses and ghostly, white trees. Then, as we rounded a corner, climbing a slight incline, the world shifted again. My headlights cut through the swirling snow, illuminating something unexpected, something that made my heart skip a beat and my foot instinctively slam on the brake. In the middle of the street, partially obscured by the heavy snowfall, was a car. It was stopped dead, angled awkwardly across the lane, its hazard lights blinking erratically, orange distress signals against the white chaos. Both the driver and passenger side doors were flung wide open, gaping like black mouths in the snowy landscape. An unsettling tableau, a silent, frozen drama playing out in the middle of our already tense journey. My first instinct was to just drive around it, to steer clear, to continue on our way and pretend we hadn't seen it. We were already late, the weather was getting worse, and frankly, something about the scene just felt off. But Mike, ever the impulsive one, the curious cat, spoke up. "Stop, stop," he urged, his voice laced with a concern that cut through my own anxieties. "Are you kidding me?" I blurted out, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. "We're already running late, Mike. Just go around it." "No, man, we can't just leave it," he insisted, his voice firm. "Look at it. Something's clearly wrong. Maybe someone needs help." Help. The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. Help, responsibility, risk. My mind flashed with a montage of news stories, late-night crime dramas, whispered warnings about strangers in distress. My gut churned with a familiar cocktail of apprehension and distrust. "Mike, we don't know what's going on," I argued, my voice sharper than intended. "It could be anything. Maybe they're fine. Maybe their car just broke down. Someone else will come along, someone better equipped to deal with it. We're already late. Judge me if you want, call me selfish, call me a bad Samaritan. But the truth is, years of navigating this world had chipped away at any naive idealism I might have once possessed. Life had a way of throwing curveballs, and too many of mine had been aimed directly at my head. Experiences, both big and small, had layered upon each other, solidifying a default setting of caution. A healthy dose of skepticism when it came to the unpredictable nature of strangers and unexpected situations. I'd been burned before, more times than I cared to count, and the scars, though invisible, ran deep, shaping my instincts, coloring my decisions. Trust didn't come easily anymore. It had to be earned, and in situations like this, earned fast. "Come on, man," Mike pleaded, his voice softening, now laced with a genuine worry that even I couldn't completely ignore. "What if someone is hurt? What if they're stranded in this storm? We can't just drive past. It's freezing out here." He had that puppy dog look in his eyes, the one that usually got him out of trouble and, more often than not, dragged me into it. His childlike curiosity, his unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of people, it was both endearing and utterly maddening. He was the kind of guy who'd stop to help a turtle cross the road, even if it meant being late for his own wedding. And while I admired that about him, sometimes, in situations like this, it felt like a reckless kind of idealism, a blind faith that ignored the sharp edges of reality. Reluctantly, with a sigh that fogged up the already frosted windows, I stopped the car. We sat there for a moment, the engine idling, the wipers rhythmically sweeping away the falling snow, the only sounds in the tense silence. The blinking hazard lights of the abandoned car pulsed in the snow, a hypnotic, unsettling rhythm. Should we check it out?" Mike asked, his voice barely a whisper, breaking the strained quiet. "Clearly, that's what we're doing, genius," I retorted, my sarcasm a thin veil for my growing anxiety. Staring at it from behind the windshield is going to magically solve the mystery of the abandoned car, right? He rolled his eyes again, a familiar gesture, but I knew he understood. He understood my reluctance, my hesitation, my ingrained distrust. He just didn't share it, not to the same degree. He was wired differently. His default setting was help, mine was assess the threat level. And right now, the threat level felt like it was climbing steadily. But even Mike, in his eagerness to play the Good Samaritan, seemed to hesitate now. He was looking at the car, at the open doors, at the desolate, snowy street, and a flicker of something akin to unease, crossed his face. Maybe even he was starting to feel the prickle of wrongness in the air. Maybe we should just wait a few more minutes, I suggested, my voice still tight, my gaze fixed on the abandoned vehicle. See if anyone comes back. Maybe they just ran to get gas or something. Hopeful, flimsy excuses, and we both knew it. He hesitated for a beat, then reluctantly agreed. Yeah, okay, a few minutes. But if no one shows, I'm going to check it out. We sat there, in the quiet of the car, watching the eerie blinking of the hazard lights, listening to the soft whisper of the falling snow. The silence punctuated only by the rhythmic sweep of the wipers and the occasional gust of wind rattling the car. The snow continued to fall, blanketing everything in a thick, white shroud, creating a surreal, almost dreamlike scene. Beautiful, yes, but also isolating, amplifying the sense of unease, the feeling of being cut off from the world, vulnerable in the heart of the storm. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. The blinking hazards continued their rhythmic pulse, the open doors remained gaping, and the silence of the snowy street pressed in on us. Nothing changed. No one appeared. The unsettling tableau remained frozen in time. Finally, Mike shifted in his seat, his patience clearly exhausted. Okay, that's it, he announced, his voice firm, breaking the tense silence. I'm going to go take a look. Before I could protest, before I could voice the litany of anxieties swirling in my head, he had unbuckled his seatbelt and was reaching for the door handle. Wait, Mike, hold on, I started to say, my voice laced with panic. Maybe we should just call the police, let them handle it. But he was already opening the door, the interior light flooding the snowy street for a brief moment. Just stay here, he said, his voice muffled by the falling snow, already stepping out into the storm. I'll just take a quick peek. Be right back. And then he was gone, swallowed by the swirling snow, moving towards the abandoned car, a solitary figure venturing into the unknown. I watched him, my heart pounding in my chest, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach, a rising sense of apprehension, a premonition of something bad about to happen, washed over me. As he approached the vehicle, cautiously circling around the front, inspecting the open driver's side door, something flickered in my peripheral vision, something dark and fleeting, at the edge of my awareness. A shadow, a movement, a subtle shift in the snowy landscape. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, lost in the swirling snow, and for a moment, I wondered if I had imagined it, if my worried mind was playing tricks on me, conjuring phantom threats out of the deepening unease. But the feeling persisted, a cold prickle of fear crawling up my spine. This situation was feeling worse and worse, every second that ticked by amplifying my sense of dread. My eyes darted back to Mike, who was now peering inside the open car, his back to me, seemingly engrossed in whatever he was seeing, or not seeing, inside the vehicle. Then it happened. Just as my anxiety reached a fever pitch, just as I was on the verge of yelling at Mike to come back, to get back in the car, I thought I saw the car jolt. A subtle, almost imperceptible movement, a slight shudder in the snowy stillness. Like something had shifted inside the vehicle, like something had moved in the trunk or the back seat, hidden from view, lurking in the shadows. Again, maybe it was my mind playing tricks, maybe it was the wind, maybe it was the snow settling on the car, but this time, the feeling of unease solidified into something more concrete, something sharper, more terrifying. This wasn't just a broken-down car, this wasn't just a stranded motorist. This was wrong, dangerously, chillingly wrong. No more hesitation, no more second-guessing. Instinct took over, pure, primal, survival instinct. I didn't think, I just reacted. My hand slammed down on the horn, a deafening blast of sound ripping through the snowy silence, a desperate alarm call echoing in the desolate street. The horn blared, long and loud, a jarring, urgent sound that shattered the stillness. I saw Mike jump, startled, whipping around to face me, his eyes wide with surprise, then dawning comprehension. He understood. He understood the urgency in the horn, the unspoken warning, the silent scream of danger. Without a second thought, without a word, he sprinted back to the car, his boots crunching through the snow, his figure a blurry silhouette against the white backdrop. He dove back into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Go, go, go," he yelled, adrenaline pumping through his veins, mirroring the fear surging through my own. I didn't need to be told twice. My foot was already on the accelerator, the tires spinning momentarily in the snow before gripping, the car lurching forward, speeding away from the stopped vehicle, away from the ominous blinking hazards, away from whoever, might have been lurking within. We sped down the snowy street, the abandoned car shrinking in the rearview mirror, the rhythmic pulse of its hazard lights fading into the distance. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by our ragged breathing and the frantic thumping of our hearts. After a few blocks, when the abandoned car was no longer visible, when we were back on a more populated street, surrounded by the faint glow of house lights, I finally slowed down, my grip on the steering wheel loosening slightly, my breathing gradually returning to something resembling normal. "What the hell was that?" Mike finally gasped, his voice still shaky, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. "I don't know," I said, my voice trembling, still reeling from the surge of terror. "But I think it was a trap." "A trap?" he repeated, his brow furrowed, confusion warring with the lingering fear in his eyes. "What are you talking about? Like a setup?" "Yeah," I said, my voice gaining a bit more strength, my thoughts starting to coalesce, to make sense of the chaotic rush of fear and instinct. "Think about it. Car stopped in the middle of the road, doors wide open, in the middle of a snowstorm, in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't that seem staged? Too perfect?" He was silent for a moment, processing my words, his gaze fixed on the snowy street ahead. Then, slowly, a dawning realization crept into his eyes. You think someone was waiting for us? Hiding?" "I don't know for sure," I admitted, "but I saw something, Mike. Something moved, near the car, just before you started back. And then I thought I saw the car jolt. Like something moved in the trunk, or the back seat. Hidden." He shivered, despite the warmth of the car's heater. "Dude," he said, his voice low, That's creepy as hell." "Creepy doesn't even begin to cover it," I said, my voice still tight with lingering fear. "That was predatory. It felt like bait, and we almost took it." "But who would do that?" he asked, his brow furrowed, still struggling to grasp the idea, the sheer audacity of such a plan. "In the middle of a snowstorm? For what?" "I don't know, Mike," I repeated, my voice laced with a chilling certainty, but I didn't want to stick around to find out. The rest of the drive to Sarah's party was tense, to put it mildly. Mike, while shaken, was still skeptical, still clinging to a sliver of disbelief. "You didn't actually see anything for sure, right?" he pressed, his voice laced with a hint of annoyance. "It could have been just your imagination, all the snow, your nerves." "Maybe," I conceded, although deep down, I knew what I had seen, or thought I had seen, was real enough to trigger a primal fear response. "But I'm not going to risk our lives based on maybe, Mike. Not for someone who could easily call for help if they were really in trouble." He grumbled, clearly annoyed, still processing the near miss, still grappling with the idea that someone would deliberately stage such a scenario. Mike was, at his core, a trusting soul, and the idea that someone would weaponize that trust, would prey on the good intentions of strangers, was deeply unsettling to him. He was the type of guy who always saw the best in people, and this near encounter with potential malice was jarring to his worldview. We arrived at Sarah's party. The warmth of the house and the cheerful chatter of our friends a stark contrast to the cold dread that still clung to me. For a while, surrounded by the familiar comfort of friends and good food, the tension eased, the adrenaline subsided, and the near miss faded into the background, becoming a slightly surreal, slightly unbelievable anecdote. We laughed, we ate, we caught up with old friends, and the abandoned car in the snow-covered street became a distant memory, a weird little blip in an otherwise normal Saturday night. Later in the evening, as the party started to wind down, as some guests were preparing to brave the snowy roads home, Sarah, ever the gracious host, switched on the TV to catch the local news, to give everyone a weather update before they ventured back out into the storm. She flipped through the channels, landing on the local news station, and what flashed across the screen, what filled the room with a sudden, chilling silence, was something that ripped away the veneer of normalcy, something that turned our near-miss anecdote into a terrifyingly real, vividly present threat. Police tape, flashing blue and red lights against a backdrop of swirling snow, filled the screen. A grim-faced reporter stood in front of a snow-covered street, narrating a breaking news story. Police are issuing reports of a stolen vehicle, she announced, her voice somber, that had been carjacked not even 2 hours earlier, just a few miles from here. My blood ran cold. 2 hours earlier. A few miles from here. The timing, the location, it all clicked into place with sickening clarity. The reporter continued, relaying a spoken account from the victim, a woman who had been driving her teenage son home from a friend's house. The victim stated that she noticed a car in the middle of the road, hazard lights on, doors open. The reporter continued, her voice monotone, relaying the horrifying details. She and her son, concerned that someone might be in distress, approached the vehicle to see if they could help. And as they did, 2 men sprung out from behind a snowbank, and another emerged from the trunk of the vehicle. They held the woman at gunpoint, forced her to turn over her keys, and promptly sped off with her car, along with the vehicle that had been used in the trap. The image on the screen shifted to a police sketch of the suspects, grainy and indistinct, but chilling nonetheless. The room went silent, the cheerful chatter abruptly cut off, replaced by a stunned, horrified silence. Every eye in the room was fixed on the screen, on the unfolding nightmare, on the chilling confirmation of what could have been, what almost was, our reality. I turned to Mike, my heart pounding in my chest, a look of pure, raw fear in my eyes. He stared back, his face pale, his eyes wide with dawning terror. That could have been us. That was almost us. The beer run, the snowstorm, the deserted street, the abandoned car. It all lined up, a terrifyingly perfect storm of circumstances, a meticulously crafted trap designed to prey on the good intentions of strangers, on the inherent human instinct to help. We told the rest of the party what had happened earlier, our voices hushed, still trembling with the lingering shock. The festive atmosphere of the evening evaporated instantly, replaced by a heavy, unsettling silence. The story rippled through the room, casting a pall over the gathering, turning the cheerful dinner party into a somber reflection on the darkness lurking beneath the surface of everyday life. People gasped, they murmured, they exchanged horrified glances, the air thick with a shared sense of vulnerability, a chilling realization of how easily we could have become victims, how close we had come to stepping into a nightmare. But the worst thing, the truly insidious part of the whole experience, was the lingering aftermath, the subtle shift in my own internal landscape. It wasn't just the fear, the immediate terror of the near-miss, it was the deeper, more corrosive impact, the subtle poisoning of my own sense of trust, my own willingness to help. I was already wary, already inclined to err on the side of caution. But this experience, this chillingly calculated trap, solidified that ingrained distrust, hardened it into something almost impenetrable. I often think about it, even now, months, years later. I think about the countless times I've driven past someone on the side of the road, a stranded motorist, a person in need, and I wonder if I would have stopped, if I would have offered help, if I hadn't experienced such a meticulously crafted trap, if I hadn't come face to face with the calculated malice of strangers preying on human kindness. And the answer, the honest, uncomfortable answer, is probably not. Probably, I would hesitate. Probably, I would drive on by. Probably, I would choose safety over compassion, self-preservation over the possibility of helping someone in need. And that chilling realization, that subtle erosion of my own humanity, is perhaps the scariest part of the whole story. The trap wasn't just designed to steal a car. It was designed to steal something far more valuable: our trust, our faith in each other, our willingness to reach out and help in a world that desperately needs more kindness, not less. So, the next time you see a car stopped on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking in the gloom, remember this story. Remember the snow-dusted streets of Denver, the chilling news report, the feeling of dread, the subtle, insidious poisoning of trust. Ask yourself, what would you do? Would you stop? Or would you drive on by, forever changed by the knowledge of what might be lurking just beyond the flickering hazard lights? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories that will keep you up at night, make sure to like and subscribe for part 2 if you dare.